Hey guys, Steve Camerata. I am back with New York best-selling book, Please Don't Die, written by me, Steve Camerata. This is it right here. You'll see it in bookstores everywhere and online on Amazon. Soon to take over the world. Best-selling book. I know it. I have confidence. I have faith. Thank you for listening. This is chapter 3, and this is chapter 3 of book 1. Book 1 is Please Don't Die, I said to myself. So book 1 is various chapters about my life. And this is one of those chapters, chapter 3, that's entitled Magic Salamanders. Why can't I ever just do as I'm told, I thought to myself as my stomach clenched in fear as I tried to remain invisible and keep as quiet as possible while I cautiously peeked out of the cave with terror running through my veins. My parents had rules for a reason, and breaking those rules had consequences. But that was of little concern to me now. I just wanted to go home. But how was I going to escape this prison? I was trapped in a blanket of fear. I have had many adventures on this particular escarpment in the various hidden caves, but this was the very first time that I had ever adventured out solo. Completely alone I was, and even though I knew I was breaking the rules, I was not scared at all, at first anyway. To me, it was just another day of me being myself with complete disregard for the consequences of my actions. I have always had a flair for adventure, and when my brother refused to accompany me on this day to our top-secret playground, I made the mistake of going alone. David and I would come down here about a half a mile from our house to collect salamanders. He never said no. This was a first. When most of the neighborhood kids were busy setting up their traditional lemonade stands to earn extra pocket change for candy and ice cream, my brother David and I created a magic salamander stand instead. The revenue stream from the traditional lemonade stand was too insignificant for us and our goals at the time. We cared not so much for candy and ice cream, but we saved every penny earned for Kiss records, and they cost much more than candy and ice cream available at Outwater Park concession stand, located at the base of the Blue Water Tower right down the street from our childhood home. We couldn't be bothered with a simple lemonade stand. In order for our desires to come to fruition, we had to up the game. What made our salamanders magic, you ask? Well, that is the very same question that had all the neighborhood kids handing us not mere coins, but dollars. Our stand was equipped with a cutting board secretly obtained from Mom's kitchen, and with a very sharp knife. For 50 cents, you could purchase a salamander, but for $1, we would cut it in half. We'd cut his tail in half in front of you, and we would grant you your money back that in about 6 to 8 weeks your salamander's tail would regenerate or grow back, or your money back. Our business thrived. This was what led me to the caves alone on this day. The year was 1976, and I was only 6 years old and forbidden to go anywhere without my older brother by my side. But therein lies the problem. He refused to accompany me, and we were fresh out of salamanders. I tried to entice him armed with my most recently obtained knowledge that our idols, Kiss, were about to release a new record, and this one was going to be a live album entitled Kiss Alive 2. The best part about this exciting news was that, as rumor had it, not only was it going to be a double album, but I heard that it was going to come with Kiss tattoos, temporary tattoos. If this revelation couldn't break him from his reverie, I was at a loss for what would. I tried to explain to him that double album most likely meant double the cost, and the fact that this masterpiece would have tattoos, I would of course want my own set, which meant that we would have to buy 2, one for each of us, and to do that we needed to sell more magic salamanders. But he wouldn't budge, and of course he sarcastically reminded me that I was not allowed to go by myself. Little did he realize at the time, but it was those very words that nudged me into the direction away from our house and down the hill to our secret area where salamander riches awaited. Would I ever see my brother and sister again, I remember thinking? Would I ever see my mom and dad again? Oh crap, if something happens to me, my brother will probably get in trouble as well. I held my breath and I tried not to be discovered as I fought back the quickly approaching tears of fear. I had about 3 or 4 salamanders in my satchel when I heard the voices. I froze instantly. These sounded like adult voices, or perhaps teenage voices, which possibly could make matters even worse. I found teenagers to be unpredictable in my childhood experience. Some were nice, but some definitely were not. My mind raced. If they were adults, why were they down here? And if they were teenagers, the same question beckoned. I remained frozen and trapped in fear and tried to formulate a plan. I had to assess the situation. Maybe I was just flipping out for no reason at all. I decided that I had to peek out of the cave and see where these intimidating voices were coming from. My sense of smell kicked in way before my sense of sight. As I carefully and slowly made my way out of the darkness and headed for the mouth of the small cave, I could smell smoke. Not smoke from a fire. This was the type of smoke that my young mind and senses has not yet encountered. It was sweet. It was different. I knew what cigarettes smelled like by default just from growing up on Outwater Park in the 70s, where it seemed like everyone smoked them freely, but this smell was different. Is this what drugs smelled like? I had no idea, but I didn't care to find out. I extended my head out of the cave cautiously and as silently as possible. I immediately saw two older boys. If I had to guess now, I would say they were probably between the ages of 18 and 20, but in all honesty, at the time, I had no idea. They both had long hair. Based on parental conditioning, I considered this to be a bad sign. One of the boys had bright red hair, the other boy a brunette. To my horror, the next thing I noticed that sent a chill up my young spine, they both appeared to have knives, big knives, and this scared the shit out of me. Why would they have knives? The weapons were attached to their belt and secured with a leather sheath. I absolutely had to get far away from these guys. The cave I was temporarily sheltered in was roughly in the middle of the escarpment. The boys were close to the road, but at the bottom of the hill. To make my escape, I had to do so quietly and quickly, but it was literally an uphill battle. As I gathered my wits and I took a deep breath to calm myself and tried to exit the cave unnoticed. However, much to my surprise, I was noticed immediately, and the reaction certainly was not a favorable one, but rather one that was noticeably hostile. The time for a tippy-toed and stealth evacuation had evaporated quickly. I had to run. "There is a kid up there," one of the boys shouted when he took notice of me. "Get that little fucker," the other screamed. Hands on knives and brandishing the weapons from the safety of their leather sheaths, the boys raced up the hill on a frantic mission to catch me. They were shouting and swearing. This was the very first time in my short life that I had ever heard swear words from the mouth of anyone besides my father. And let me tell you, some of these swears were foreign to me, and even words that my father wouldn't even say in the heat of anger, he wouldn't even utter. I was terrified. These guys meant business. They seemed to have murder in their eyes and hatred in their voices. I had to get away. I was running so frantically fast up the hill that my feet would lose traction, similar to that of a car trying to quickly accelerate with a broken transmission. "Kill him," they shouted. Kill him? What? Did they really mean that? Or were they just two stoned teenagers trying to scare the crap out of a little kid? I had no way of knowing, and I certainly did not want to find out. I made it to the crest of the escarpment without looking back. Perhaps they had abandoned the chase, hopefully so. But regardless, I raced on to the safety of my home. My brother was right where I had left him. He was sitting in front of the television in the living room watching one of our favorite programs, The Brady Bunch. I raced past him and ran to my bedroom, slamming the door and jumping into my bed, hands over my eyes, trying to hide my tears. I thought for sure I was going to die. I felt like I was going to be murdered that day, or who knows. That situation could have developed into a number of different scenarios, none of them good. My mission was to erase that experience from my mind and forget that it ever happened. I was successful in this endeavor initially, but then the mental band-aid that I held firmly in place was ripped off during the blizzard of '77. After the big storm, there was a concert scheduled at the Keenan Center. I think they called it the Blizzard of '77 Snow Jam, or something like that. I wanted to go really bad, and thankfully my dad agreed to take me. It was going to be just the two of us, which made my day even more special. He knew how bad I wanted to go, and I think that making me happy made him happy. The first band hit the stage, and they were awesome. My dad feigned a half-hearted smile and said, as he said, "Stephen, how can you listen to this crap? This sounds like noise to me," he said. And I tried to explain to him that at concerts such as this, usually the shitty bands play first, and the next band would most likely sound much better. My jaw dropped as the second act hit the stage, and not in a good way. A chill washed over my entire body, and fear crept into my brain. We had to get out of there immediately. "Dad, we have to leave now." He was confused. He asked why, and I knew it would be better off not to tell him the reason, or I'm quite certain he would have been on that stage in a heartbeat with swinging fists of anger. As it turns out, on the stage before us were the very two boys who I encountered the summer before at the bottom of Transit Road. I could hardly believe my eyes. One of the boys was playing bass and the other boy was singing and playing guitar. I feel bad that I never told my dad why I suddenly went from thankful enjoyment to sheer terror. But to this day, until writing this book, it is just something that I have preferred to keep buried. My dad agreed to leave, even though he didn't know why. We went to Reed's for a hot dog and a milkshake, and then headed back to the safety of our childhood home. That's chapter 3 of Please Don't Die. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. I'm going to read through various chapters of this book to give you guys a sneak peek of this project. And I thank you so much for subscribing to WINEWORKZ. I appreciate it. We have the most, as you know by now, the most variety on all of the tube of the U.